So, hello, good evening to everyone who is watching us from beyond. Tonight, we want to look at a history about Africa, the beliefs of African religion, the culture style of African religion, and how and the concept of God in Africa religion, or the concept of bringing God in Africa religion. So let's quickly look at um, a short history about African religion. African religious belief and practice of the people of Africa. It should be noted that any attempt to generalize about the nature of African religions rests wrongly, implying that there is homogeneity among all African cultures. In fact, Africa is a vast continent encompassing both geographic variation and tremendous cultural diversity. Each of the more than 15 modern countries that occupy the continent has its own particular history, and each in turn comprises numerous ethnic groups with different languages and unique customs and beliefs. African religions and diverse as the continent is varied. Nevertheless, long cultural contact in degrees ranging from trade to conquest has forged some fundamental commonalities among religions within sub-regions, allowing some generalization to be made about the distinguishing features of religions indigenous to Africa, with the exception of the influence of Christianity in new religious movements in Africa. Religions that were introduced in Africa from elsewhere, such as Islam and Christianity, are not covered more. So we are just looking at the concept or the conceptual behind what God's the gospel or the concept of God in Africa. So if you look at the olden days or gone are the days, Africans' beliefs and African worships was not straight line, worshipping the Islam or doing a Christianity life, but Africans was having a way to worship God. So we are looking at the essence of African traditional religion. One scholar who has written extensively on African traditional religion is John Mbiti, a Kenyan whom many consider the dean of living African theologians. An important preoccupation of Mbiti's work has been to show that knowledge of God and the worship of God have been staples of African life from the earliest time of the continent. In other words, he shows that the sense of the divine was not something introduced to Africa by missionaries or by anyone. That the knowledge of God in African religion was not much different from the idea of God that Christian missionaries preach in Africa, and more specifically to our purpose here, that belief in God engendered a moral response that for centuries from Christian arrival in Africa directed moral life and interaction on the continent among its people. According to Mbiti, this is a scholar from Kenya who tried to describe the lifestyle or the history of Africa really before the foreigners coming to Ghana or coming to Africa. The Africans were using their own religion to worship the supreme. So the things that they came in, the moral things that they came in with it, the Africans were already practicing it. So Africans came to believe in God by reflecting on their experience through observation of the created universe, specifically by reflecting on the wonder and magnitude of the universe. They came to conclusion that God must exist. They posited the existence of God to explain the existence and substance of the universe by rooted in the belief in God as the creator. Africans believe in various dimensions of the created universe, such as visible and invisible. That is the spiritual realm, heavenly, skyward, and earthly. And in some ethnic groups, there is a belief in the underworld. Commonly, God is believed to dwell in the skies. In most cases, the earth is conceived as a living thing, a goddess. Mother Earth, according to Mbiti, the earth is symbolically viewed as the mother of the universe, while the heavens, sky are seen as its male counterpart. While the universe has a beginning, many Africans believe that it does not have an end, either spatially or temporally. So, as Mbiti is saying, these are the beliefs. These are the beliefs that Mbiti was trying to talk about. But let's look more on the concept of God in Africa, in African traditional religion. A few abstracts on it is African people do not consider God to be a man, but in other expresses certain concepts, they employ languages and images about God as an aid to their conceptualization of Him, whom they have not seen and about whom they confess to know little or nothing. God is experienced as an all-pervading reality. He is the constant participant in the affairs of human beings. Scholars who study religion in Africa tell us that all societies have a belief in God. This paper aims at in-depth study of these beliefs. So, as the scholars are saying, scholars telling us that every society in Africa believes in God. So, looking at the worldview and divinity, let's look at this one. Ritual and religious specialist. African religious is not a matter of adherence to a doctrine, but is concerned with supporting fecundity and sustaining the community. African religion emphasizes maintaining a harmonious relationship with the divine powers, and their rituals attempt to harness cosmic powers and channel them for good. Ritual is the means by which a person negotiates responsible relationship with other members of the community, with the ancestors, the spiritual forces of nature, and with the gods. The cult of the divinities are visible in the many shrines and altars consecrated in their honor. Shrines and altars are generally not imposing or even permanent structures. And can be insubstantial as small maker in a private courtyard. Right relation with the divinities and maintained through prayers, offering, and sacrifice, especially blood sacrifice. The shedding of blood in ritual sacrifice, which is believed to release the vital force that sustains life, precedes most ceremonies in which blessing are sought from the ancestors and divinities. So these are the ritual and religious specialists talking or saying about African religion. So looking at the ancestors also serve as a mediators by providing access to spiritual guidance and power. Death is not sufficient condition for becoming an ancestor. So listen to this well. Death, eh? Death is not the sufficient commission for you to be approved as an ancestor or for anybody to be approved as an ancestor. I don't know if you guys hear me because I think the sound was off. Okay, so let's continue. The sun was off, so I think it was coming straight from the mic, from the phone. So let's look at ancestors also serve as mediators. That's what we just look at. And only those who lived a full measure of life, cultivated moral values, and achieved social distinction attain this status. Ancestors are taught to reprimand those who neglect or breach the moral order by troubling the errant descendant with sickness or misfortune until restitution is made. When serious illness strikes, therefore, it is assumed that the ultimate cause is interpersonal and social conflict. Serious illness is thus a moral dilemma as much as biological crisis. So these are also the religious and ritual specialists saying about African religion. But let's look at the mythology way, the mythology of African belief. In African oral cultures, myth embody philosophical reflection, express values, and identify moral standard. Unlike Western mythology, African myths are not encountered as single narrative story, nor is there any established corpus of myth. Instead, myths are embedded and transmitted in ritual practice. So, guys, I just want to focus you more than where I am. Okay, so let's continue. African mythology commonly depicts the cosmos anthropomorphically. Let me go back again. African mythology commonly depicts the cosmos anthropomorphically. The human body is a microcosm that incorporates the same primordial elements and essential forces that make up the universe. Friendship is a predominant theme in much West African myth and ritual because the human body is conceived as the twin of the cosmic body. According to the cosmogony shared by the Dogon, Bambara, and Malinke peoples of Mali, the primordial beings were twins, and twins therefore represent the ideal. Every individual shares in the structure of twinship. Following a birth, the placenta, which is believed to be the locus of one's destiny and the soul's twin, is buried in the family compound and watered for the first week of child's life among the Asante of Ghana. Twins are assigned a status akin to that living shrines, a sign of abundant fertility. They are deemed repositories of sacredness, nor in the of the Democratic Republic of Congo. By contrast, twins represent an excess of fertility, more characteristics of the animal world than the human. The rituals are undertaken to protect the community from anomalous conditions. The trickster is a prevalent type of myth character in African mythology. So look at this one, or let's look at this one well. The trickster is a prevalent type of myth character in African mythology. Tricksters overturn convention and are notorious for pursuing their insatiable appetite and shameless lust, even at the price of disaster. Although the trickster introduced disorder and confusion into the divine plan, he also paved the way for a new, more dynamic order to the fun of burning. Legba is such a trickster. He is a troublemaker who disrupts harmony and sows turmoil. But he is revered as a transformer, not viewed as evil. Like other tricksters, Legba presides over divination, called the linguist. He translates for humans the otherwise cryptic messages of Mawu, the supreme being. Tricksters thus communicate an important paradox. The cosmos, true grounded in an divinable ordained order, is characterized by constant change. So, looking at the myth side of Africa, the mythology side of African religion, or the beliefs in, or the concept of bringing gospel to Africa, or the concept of bringing God's word to Africa. So, as we were looking at the essence of it, let's just try as much as possible to skip and look at African traditional religious system as basis. So let's look at the introduction. The primary objective of this paper is to define the African traditional religious system as the basis of understanding Christian spiritual warfare within an African context. This background is essential to any application of Christian spirituality in Africa. For this reason, the paper serves only as an introduction to the application of Christian spirituality in Africa. There are basic African religious foundations that need to be presented and defined. These are essential for any Christian spiritual inquiry and application in Africa. Let's look at African traditional religious system. African traditional religious system has the following component, and let's look at the component it has. It has foundational religious beliefs in impersonal or mystical powers, and also belief in spirit beings. What constitutes the spirit world? These are the beliefs of Africa, and belief in many divinities. So, belief in supreme being. Let's hierarchy of spiritual beings and foundational religious practice. We have establishing links and relationship with cosmic, spiritual, and mystical powers. Means of exercising cosmic, mystical, and spiritual control. So let's quickly look at this one. Foundational religious practice, or hierarchy of spiritual beings. The traditional
Religion of worldview conceive of all spiritual beings in their hierarchical order. The supreme being is the highest and the greatest. The lesser beings, such as gods and divinities, occupy a lesser position but higher than the humans do. The authority, power, influence, and legitimacy of spirit beings depend upon the position within the ontological order of beings. Spirit beings, by virtue of their position and roles within the ontological order, 1. Dispense and control the activities of spiritual, mystical, and forces, and influence morality and ethics of the human society. So, traditional Africans' response to these spirit beings according to their place of hierarchy, power, influence, and role. And this is how the hierarchy of spiritual beings in African religion. Let's try as much as, and we are just giving a gist or a brief of it. You can find out more on the media platform, the beliefs of African religion and the concept behind God, the concept of God in Africa. So as we are looking at belief in a supreme being, what is the influence and impact of this dominant religious belief in one supreme being upon the whole tradition of African life? The work of African scholars for the past 3 decades have established the fact that Africa have a concept of an universal God and a creator. Most Africans are in agreement that the traditional Africans do not actively worship this supreme being. Indowu calls the Yoruba religion diffuse monotheism. This means that the Yoruba had originally a monotheistic religion, but as the religion gradually decayed over the centuries, the rising proliferation of the divinities were overshadowing the earlier monotheistic beliefs and practice of the religion. Even with this definition of diffuse monotheism in the Yoruba religion, coupled with similar notions scattered across the continent of Africa, overwhelming fact to show that even though Africans generally have an awareness and belief in the supreme being, the truth is this supreme being is not known to have been exclusively worshipped by traditional African. Instead, the African divinities and their ancestors, who are lesser beings, have been actively involved in the everyday religious life of the traditional Africans. They directly receive sacrifice offerings and prayer offered by the traditional Africans. In most traditional African society, the supreme being was not actively involved in everyday religious practice of the people, but the divinities of the gods and the ancestors were. In some parts of Africa, the supreme being is usually mentioned in prayers, songs, and some religious ceremonies. So guys, that's how the belief, or that's how the conceptual behind introduction of gods or Christianity in Africa. But before that introduction, we have known and realized that before that there was African belief in God. So African used to believe God, and African try as much as possible to know how God works. So try as much as possible to find more about the beliefs. And if you want to get more details, just go straight to the internet platform and search more about. You can get more information about African beliefs in religion. So we will end here, and We will surely come back soon with a different segment. Stay tuned and thank you for watching us.